Tucker Carlson recently had on a doctor, a whistleblower, claiming that China's government intentionally released COVID-19, saying, quote, "I worked in the World Health Organization reference lab, which is the top coronavirus lab in the world." Their opening paragraph states, the Chinese government intentionally manufactured and released the COVID-19 virus that led to mass shutdowns and deaths across the world, a top virologist and whistleblower told Fox News host Tucker Carlson on Tuesday. Carlson specifically asked Dr. Li Mengyan whether she believed the Chinese Communist Party released the virus on purpose. Yes, of course, it's intentionally, she responded on Tucker Carlson tonight. The doctor has since been banned from Twitter, gone, no longer able to speak. With around 60,000 followers, social media has removed this actual doctor from social media. Now, there's probably a lot of people who believe this and believe her. I can't discredit her. I'm not a doctor and I didn't work for the World Health Organization, but I can rain on all of your parades, all individual parades that you're having, apparently. Anyway, look. These claims are said to be unsubstantiated, according to many members of the media, but we have seen many different stories and claims made throughout this year that it was either created in a lab or it leaked from a lab or something to do with some kind of development in a lab. We've even seen mainstream media like the Washington Post run op-eds entertaining the possibility that this did originate in a lab and was leaked. So far, the mainstream narrative that has persisted is that it is not true. So perhaps the best we can do is take this whistleblower at face value and say, well, maybe they're telling the truth. I mean, they worked there, we didn't. And the Chinese Communist Party is not a good group of people. They're running concentration camps. So they have reasons to kind of disrupt everything. They hate Trump. Maybe that's the motive. But there are reasons to doubt this story. I don't think it's fair to just assume because you have a whistleblower, the story must be true. And I certainly wouldn't trust the Chinese Communist Party without hard evidence. Even someone coming out saying they worked in this lab, for me, is just not enough. I would just say at this point, I don't know. But let's read these stories, and I want to break through the history of what happened with COVID and how we got to this point. Fox News reports, Yan said more evidence would be released, but pointed to her own high-ranking position at a World Health Organization reference lab as a reason to trust her allegation. Quote, "I worked in the World Health Organization reference lab, which is the top coronavirus lab in the world, in the University of Hong Kong. And the thing is, I get deeply into such investigation in secret from the early beginning of this outbreak. I had my intelligence because I also get my own unit network in China involved in the hospital. Also, I work with the top coronavirus virologist in the world. So together with my experience, I can tell you this is created in the lab. And also, it is spread to the world to make such damage." Yan's comments conflicted with the opinion of Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease and White House coronavirus advisor, who previously cast doubt on the idea the virus was artificially created. In May, he told National Geographic, "If you look at the evolution of the virus in bats and what's out there now is very, very strongly leaning toward the virus could not have been artificially or deliberately manipulated the way the mutations have naturally evolved. Other scientists have panned the idea that COVID served as a sort of bioweapon or was released by a lab." Fox News previously reported on Yan back in July when she blew the whistle on China's alleged attempts to suppress information about its handling of the virus. With a vast network of contacts in Chinese medical facilities, Yan attempted to gather more information about the virus as China blocked overseas experts from conducting research in this country. Now, we'll stop there. There's a lot of there are a lot of reasons to believe China is doing something nefarious or dirty. We saw many stories that early on, China knew that there was human-human transmission with coronavirus and withheld the information. Then had Chinese individuals, loyalists in other countries, start buying up medical gear and shipping it back to China. They knew they were going to face a very serious pandemic, and they were stripping resources away from other countries to save themselves. It's self-preservation. I get it. But China's also authoritarian and a bit despotic. Well, they're communist. So they're not going to tell the truth about what's going on. And would I put it past a psychotic regime like the Chinese Communist Party, who has concentration camps? Would I put it past them to manufacture a virus? I would not. But our own scientists are saying it's likely not correct that it was created in a lab. Simply, well, that's their expert opinion. I'm not a scientist. And I got to point out, I'm going to go right to it. This woman worked at the University of Hong Kong. Well, I hate to say it, but we're dealing with bias. Do you think China is bad? If you think that, I should say the Chinese Communist Party, if you think the Chinese Communist Party is bad, then you're likely going to side with the Hong Kong university worker. As many of you know, China is suppressing the rights of the people of Hong Kong and trying to basically absorb what was once a British colony. The people there enjoy freedoms, like, well, they did for a while, and now the Chinese Communist Party is moving in and trying to crush that. I'm not here to impugn the honor of this individual, this Dr. Yan. I don't know exactly what her loyalties are, but she's coming out against the Communist Party of China, accusing them of a very serious infraction. And I got to say, no evidence. I know the media often says without evidence, but we need documentation, something to back up these claims. Now, it is fair to point out there have been many stories and many other people who have said this likely came from a lab, whether it was intentional or not. Now, it's a bold statement to say it was intentional. Let's read more. They say, her revelations fueled ongoing complaints the Chinese government failed to tell the world early on about the virus's threat. Specifically, she believes the Chinese government ignored research that could have saved lives. The State Department did not immediately respond to Fox News' request for comment. In response, her former employer, the University of Hong Kong, criticized her account. A press release noted that the content of the said news report does not accord with the key facts as we understand them. Quote, specifically, Dr. Yan never conducted any research on human-to-human transmission of the novel coronavirus at the University of Hong Kong during December 2019 and January 2020, her central assertion of the said interview. Yan, who said she was one of the first scientists in the world to study the novel coronavirus, fled China and currently fears retaliation. She was allegedly asked by her supervisor at the university/WHO reference lab, Dr. Leo Poon, in 2019, to look into the odd cluster of SARS-like cases coming out of mainland China at the end of December 2019. Now, it's a bold claim to say that it was intentionally made. And I think it downplays another serious issue we have with China that I think might actually be more relevant and more important. They are mass polluters. They have this thing called gutter oil, where people literally pull oil out of like food waste lines and then reboil it and try and serve it to people. And that kind of garbage and other gunk in it. And there have been historically other diseases that have emerged out of China. So if you were to come to me and tell me that there was a wet food market that was filthy, anything but sanitary, I'm going to believe it. If you're going to tell me that the Chinese government engaged in a plot to manufacture a bioweapon that they could release around the world to damage it, I got a million more questions. What was their end goal? Why did they do it? How many people were involved? You see how this works out? This is why I'm not a fan of conspiracy theories. It is possible. It is possible. Now, I will also say, as for all the scientists who have claimed it is unsubstantiated and we disagree, these could not have emerged in nature, things like that. Wouldn't it be the intent of China to bypass any kind of mainstream or normal analysis of where this virus originated from? Like stealth? If they were really going to intentionally create a virus, they wouldn't just make it look perfectly man-made and then release it because people would be like, yo, this thing looks like it was man-made. Wouldn't they want to make it look like a hodgepodge natural evolution, but make it more effective? That's literally what a weapon would do. They wouldn't want you to know they did it. So we can look at a bunch of other things. Either China's lying about their COVID numbers and their deaths that we've seen throughout the year, or they knew what was coming. They did. They prepared for it. Still doesn't mean they manufactured it in a lab. And I got to say, this doctor needs to come out with hard evidence other than I just work there. Because, I mean, listen, as much as I would prefer to believe, the Chinese Communist Party is evil and all these things. I'm sorry. I do believe that. But as much as it might be preferable to believe that all the problems we're being hit by come directly from China as an intentional attack on us, it might just be that they're they have negligent sanitation or health services, and we've seen viruses like this happen before. And I think the bigger issue now that we're facing in the U.S. has more to do with the Democrats' refusal to accept that things are getting a lot better. And the major spikes, it's all long since behind us. So we should probably start getting back to business. And many places are. I got to be honest. Wow, I don't care about this story. I don't even know Tucker Carlson's running this woman's statement. I mean, he can do his own thing. It's his show. Well, Twitter suspended her. And I think that's the wrong move. I think me doing a video like this and explaining my doubts, it's the best way to actually address this. Because I'll tell you, you might disagree with me. Feel free to comment below. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think open discussion about what she's saying is extremely important. Otherwise, she's going to tell people are going to hear. And if you ban her, they'll just believe she must be telling the truth. But I think about the bigger conspiracy there. What is it? That China is then working with some people in the U.S. government? I mean, hey, I wouldn't be surprised. We, for a long time, have been selling out our country to Chinese interests, sending our manufacturing overseas. So it could be the case, but I'm not a fan of conspiracies, okay? You want to come at me with this stuff, then you're going to have to give me evidence. I do think there's another point to be made before we read the Twitter thing, though. When do we take the word of experts as valuable, especially in the field of journalism? I was reading something from NewsGuard. I did talk about this a long time ago. NewsGuard, for those that aren't familiar, is the service I use that rates news agencies on their credibility. They're extremely biased. Wow. Their bias is getting worse and worse every day, where they'll find a conservative website that's got 3 bad articles and they'll say the whole thing is bunk. And it's like, dude, that's 3 articles. I can go to ABC, NBC, New York Times and find 10 times the amount of articles that are bad, misinformation, because people make mistakes. But anyway, I digress. They had given a negative rating to what they determined to be a conspiracy theory website. Now, the website was talking about 9/11 and false flag attacks and stuff like that, but they actually cited former U.S. intelligence and they had them on the record. But they still said it was fake news. Why? I don't understand this. And this is one of the biggest problems in journalism. Right now, we have a virologist, confirmed virologist, straight up saying that they worked in this lab and they know this to be true. Twitter has suspended this individual. Why? How does Twitter know? Did Twitter do an investigation? And why would we determine that this individual's statements are not credible? We can't. We know that they're an actual academic. We know they did this. They're an actual doctor. They worked in this university and they're saying something. What do? You see, there are many experts who go on MSNBC and CNN and other channels and say, Donald Trump works for Russia. Should we ban Peter Strzok now? You know him. He's the guy who was tweeting with Lisa Page about insurance policies against Trump. The lovers Trump tweets. Here's a guy who believes to this day, he went out in some interview and said that Donald Trump is compromised by Russia. So get rid of him. You're going to ban him next? Isn't that destabilizing our country? Why is that opinion allowed? Because he's an expert. He worked for the FBI. Therefore, what he says must be true. Okay, well then what about this doctor? If you're going to go ahead and assume that Peter Strzok, as an expert who worked in the FBI, knows what he's talking about and trust him, why would you say this virologist is wrong and ban her and ban conversations around what she's saying? Therein lies the problem. I think there could be some veracity to Strzok's claims. Well, I'll put it this way. There may have been a long time ago, but Mueller didn't find anything. There was no evidence. So he's probably wrong at this point. I mean, because Mueller was looking for it. If we launched an intergovernmental, international effort to investigate the origin of coronavirus, went into China and dug through all the labs and had all of the former officials testify before an intergovernmental panel, then I might believe it when they say she's wrong. But when China blocked our efforts, when they lied, and we've seen several other people make similar claims, then I say, well, we got a whistleblower. Let's hear what they have to say. When we started the Russiagate thing, for instance, I absolutely said there might be something there. I actually entertained that. Now I feel kind of dumb, but at the time it was the right move. Let's have an investigation, see what's going on for the good of the country. And the Democrats could never let it go. To this day, after Peter Strzok and his own allies did an investigation, found no evidence, they still believe Trump is owned by Russia. Okay. So ban Peter Strzok. Ban him from Twitter. He's an unhinged conspiracy theorist. But they don't. And therein lies the problem. Twitter suspends Chinese virologist who says COVID-19 was made in Wuhan lab. Dr. Li Men Yang, a former researcher at Hong Kong School of Public Health, went dark on the platform after she accused China of covering up evidence that the deadly virus came from a lab in Wuhan. They don't want the people to know this truth. Also, that's why I got suspended. I got suppression, and I am the target. I am the target that China Communist Party wants to disappear, she told Fox News host Tucker Carlson. Carlson then responded, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, so I'm going to assume you're not an anti-Chinese racist, so it's not clear why Twitter would shut you down or why you're being ignored by the rest of the U.S. media. Why is she being ignored? Twitter declined to comment to the post on Wednesday. The whistleblower released a paper on Monday on the open access repository website Zenote that she says backs up her claims and shows how the virus could be conveniently created in a lab setting in 6 months. The paper, which was co-authored with 2 others, claims to note how SARS-CoV-2 shows biological characteristics that are inconsistent with a naturally occurring zoonotic virus. Okay, then. Well, I'll walk back a little bit of what I said earlier on. She's got a paper out. We've got a bunch of other papers from many more doctors saying it was naturally occurring. I think it would be strange that you have all these other scientists secretly working with China. I'm sorry, I just can't buy that. You know, conspiracies happen and China's got their tendrils and their interests all over the world. But come on. Dr. Fauci is on Trump's task force. I think it's funny when the media tries to pit Trump and Fauci against each other. I think it's funny that people don't like Fauci and it's like, he's on Trump's task force. He's been the whole time. I still can't believe COVID is an issue. But that's what the reason why this is so important is that Joe Biden's strategy right now against Trump is coronavirus response. If it turns out that this was a bioweapon released by China, then Trump is completely off the hook. 100%. And China is responsible. Now, to be fair, I think China's responsible. I think even if it emerged, you know, the main narrative is the correct narrative, which I have no reason to doubt, it emerged in this, you know, food market or whatever. They lied. We know they lied. And we know they were hoarding materials. But now they're coming after Trump. Back in, I think it was February, Business Insider ran this story talking about, you know, we can see here that the seafood market is very, very close. We have this right here. They say Batao Zhao of the South China University of Technology previously worked in Wuhan. In the paper, he suggests the killer coronavirus probably originated from a laboratory in Wuhan and was tracked out accidentally by an unsuspecting scientist. A branch office of the Wuhan CDC is located about 600 meters, less than half a mile, from the Huanan market via main roads, though it's not the Chinese CDC's only site in Wuhan. So here we are. We've heard this before. Now that study was retracted. I don't know if that means it was bad or not. It's true. The market is really close to the Wuhan CDC. Doesn't really mean anything. The real issue for me is about truth in media. With social media banning Dr. Yan, now she can't even engage. And that's a bad idea. You're going to create conspiracy theorists. The other issue I had when I was reading this is like, why wouldn't we just trust her? Why wouldn't we say that's a whistleblower? I mean, think about it. You got these other scientists who work at these universities saying she's lying. She's lying. Yeah, well, she's a whistleblower. They're not. Get it? That means if they knew, they're not telling you. That's what a whistleblower is. Doesn't mean you blindly trust whistleblowers. It just means if I'm going to take the word of Peter Strzok that Donald Trump is working for Russia, why would I ignore this doctor? And therein lies the bias of the media and how they frame things. They call everything Dr. Yan said unsubstantiated. Well, she put out a paper. Is that good enough? Look, let me be honest. I do not believe the coronavirus was a bioweapon. I really don't. And I'm open to all of the possibilities, but I need hard evidence. For now, I think the simple solution is I think China pollutes like crazy. They have horrible human rights records, horrible living conditions. Not every single person in China, but many people are living in serious poverty. And poverty exists everywhere. Look, in San Francisco, we got poop all over the street. And we have typhus breaking out in LA because of the homeless. It happens here too. If we can see this in California, why couldn't we see it in China? China pollutes like crazy. And they lied about it and let it spread because they don't care. That to me makes a ton of sense. I don't need to believe some theory or an individual whistleblower that China did it on purpose. Maybe they did. Maybe they did. If there's one paper out now, it's hard to know what's true. It really, really is. Because we're going to get a ton of mainstream media saying it's not true, it's unsubstantiated. And I'm just going to be like, has anyone substantiated anything else? Here's how it works. I look to the news and what do I see? A handful of scientists saying this looks like it was a natural evolution. These things happen. I say, well, that's true. Then I see this doctor putting out her paper with a couple others saying man-made. I say, okay, well, we have this study. Do I have any other studies? No? Well, then what am I supposed to believe? I'm sorry. I defer to the simple solution. Probably emerged in unsanitary conditions, and it is China's fault. It doesn't need to be a grand conspiracy. In fact, the negligence is worse. I'm not gonna pretend that China has any control over what they're doing. I think that the Communist Party is so unable to actually function properly. They're putting people in concentration camps. That's not efficient. It causes problems. But it's the only thing they know how to do because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to do anything. So when you have poor living conditions and people, with crazy animals in a wet market and a virus emerges, I'm going to be like, yep, sounds like China because they have a crappy government. There's an argument that the 1918 Spanish flu actually originated in China. And that's why they didn't have a particularly bad flu season. They all kind of got it. Then they had partial immunity. It mutated, traveled around, reached the US and Europe. Combined with World War I, it was extremely bad. And then when it made it back to China, people already had partial immunity to it. I think that's just the simple solution, man, but I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel, and I will see you all then.